Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael Taylor from shiftingshares.com. Recognise a few names from the chat. Thank you very much for joining. Sunny Ipswich, it's not very sunny here in London, we've had a bit of rain. This webinar is going to be how I use SharePad. We'll go through my watch list, we'll go through how I use my filters, and I'll try and share how I use the product in order to make my trades during the day. And I mainly use SharePad on the night to collect trades by looking at filters. So I go through my watch list, I note things down, and then during the day I'm running ShareScope, which gives me the intraday price action. So hopefully you can see the FTSE 100. This isn't an index that I look at very often, mainly because it's full of large caps, and to make any money on this you need insane amounts of leverage and an edge. And to get an edge on these when you've got teams of analysts covering, discounted cash flows and everything from all of these stocks, it's incredibly difficult. So I just don't bother. If you've got a strategy that works for the FTSE 100, use it. That's brilliant. But that's not what I use. So how I use my filters, we go to Other Lists, and I will click LSE Shares. And that brings up all of the shares on the London Stock Exchange available. So we've got 1997. That has dropped in recent months. It was 2300 I believe last year. So we are seeing a lot of companies leave the market and not many new ones come in. That isn't great, but we do have to deal with what we've got. It will be interesting in a few years if we see more companies going through the private equity route rather than coming to the AIM market or the main market. There will need to be some changes done, but that's a few years away. So with filters, what I will usually do is after the close, I'll load up SharePad, I'll get this list here, and I will run through some filters. Now these are already set up, I believe, on SharePad in the library. And the one that I like to use is volume, so vol. And if we load that up, we can see here that it will give me the previous volume as a percentage of the last 40 days average volume. And what that tells me is that whenever there's a volume spike in relation to the previous 40 days average volume, then this filter will flag it up. So right now this is giving us yesterday's. If we untick that and tick volume today, that will give us today a different set of results. So for example, on a Saturday morning I will want the previous volume, so that's the one that I will use. And for example tonight, when I want the volume tonight, it would be volume today. I also have a market cap filter, so I don't really want to be buying companies over 2 billion. It starts to get really difficult. And to filter it further, I've also excluded closed-end investments. So I don't want any investment trusts or anything like that. I want pure equities. And the good thing about this filter is once you've loaded it up, you can see sort of big changes here. It tells you what platform it's on, and you can do that by adding a column. So there's various things that you can add. So for example, if we were interested in dividends, if you're an income investor, you probably wouldn't be searching for volume, but for example if you wanted to do that, you could click dividends and then add it. Technical ones as well, which is how I've built this filter, and you can add whatever you want. I've got market cap because it's useful to see, the average volume, and the trading platform, whether I can either put my trades direct on the market or if I would have to go through a market maker to do that. And so I'd start at Spatial Holdings. I will put 7 months on the chart because I don't really need the full history of the stock. I'm interested in what's going on now and how I can make money from it now or in the next few months. So I'll click 7 months. Straight away we can see here there's been, looks like a period of two months there that nothing's happened. So not really very exciting, because as a trader you need things to move, otherwise you just can't make any money. So I'll hit the space bar, ignore that one. 4D Pharma, so we can see here it's 8.5% down so far. Is there much difference in volume? Let's take a closer look. So this could be significant. So it's 50 million market caps. That could be an institution selling. There could potentially be a bounce trade when that seller's out. Now, I don't know too much about this stock yet, but what I would do is add it to the watch list so I can keep a tab of that stock. Press space again, access intelligence. So we got some seriously big volume yesterday, but the price didn't move. So that could be a fund transferring, or it could be a bed and ISA. It doesn't really look too significant, and it doesn't really look like a volatile stock. AFC Energy. I think this is one of those exciting sectors that gets the punters going crazy. So there has been a lot of volatility in here. I did try and short this stock. I can't remember when exactly. I did lose money because it kept rising. But you've got to cover your losses when things start to go sour, especially when you're short, because you never know how high your price can go. But this seems to be coming up to a recent high, around 28 pence. So if we wanted to keep track of that, we could add it to the watch list. And what we can also do is draw an alarmed line. So for example, if we want to keep an eye on it around 27.5, because we don't want to be notified then, because it might be too late to buy. So what we could do is put an alarmed line here. When the price reaches 26.6 here, we will get a notification from SharePad, and then we can immediately put it on our level 2 and see what the price action is, because if we want to buy when it goes through this level here, then we'd want to be on top of that. Alba Mineral Resources, 4.5 million. Doesn't really look like much is going on here. When you get into these tiny stocks, the spread can be really wide, so you've got to have some volatility to actually beat the spread and get ahead. It doesn't really look like one I'd be interested in. All Active Asset Capital, that's a big drop. What we could do then to see what caused it, so we can click on news here, and I'm not actually sure how to use the news on SharePad, unfortunately. But what I would do is look at the news and then see if there's a reason for that move. So we click back onto the chart. Amiad Water Systems. This one potentially looks interesting because it's at the 200 moving averages. We can see there. Now if we look on all, and maybe scroll into the past couple of years, we can see the stock's broken through here, but it has bounced off the 200 here, and it has bounced off it here on big volume. So this might be an interesting stock to watch if we would be looking to buy on support. I'm not doing that at the moment. What I would like to do is trade the breakout. So it would be this area here. So again, I could set an alarmed line right here. AGL. I think this was the stock that posted an RNS, something to do with cancer. Yeah, there's the spike there. If a stock ever releases an RNS that suggests they've found some sort of positive news for cancer, it doesn't really matter how many years away that it actually is and how many millions will be needed to fund it. People will jump on board on that, and you know, there's a nice trade often in terms of these RNSs. I was not banking, 162 million market cap. Chart potentially doesn't look interesting there. This is very illiquid, so I wouldn't look at it. Audio Boom could be interesting. So there was a Sunday News article which suggested that they were dressing it up for sale, and there we can see the big volume spike here. I'm always very careful of these RNSs and these sort of pieces in the newspaper, because I always think maybe it's trying to get someone out, and we can see that the stock really did rise up to about 280, and it sold off quite heavily. So just be careful when you see an article in the newspaper. A good example is the Fever Tree bid. I'm pretty sure that's planted to help someone out every few months. I guarantee it, in the next few weeks there'll be a Fever Tree bid story doing the rounds. Just be careful of these because they can catch you. Billington Holdings, this is a really nice chart. Conspiracy theorist. Well, you know, you can never be too careful in this market. So Billington Holdings, that would have been a nice one to buy. It doesn't look like there's huge amounts of volume, so this would be more of a trend play rather than a scalp. But if you can get on board with these trends and you can run them up, then they can be very profitable. Besici Mining, this is a company where the directors pay themselves extreme amounts and it's got a very short life of mine, so I would just avoid this for that reason. And if we look, we can see the staggered spikes because it's so illiquid. The only time you'd ever really want to buy this is if it was on news, so there was a really good RNS and there's a scramble for stock. Because when this happens on SetsQX, what usually happens is the market makers don't have that much stock, and if all of a sudden they're suddenly made to deal, you know, they might deal 2 or 3 times a week, and all of a sudden they've got 10 trades in the first couple of minutes, they're then net short. So what they need to do is close that short, and the way to do that is to bid for more stock. And what usually happens is someone gets on the bulletin boards, people see that the stock's spiking, everyone jumps on. That would be the sort of trade to take. Just don't stick around and don't be left holding the baby. BMTO. Sorry, so we've got a question from Terry. How do we set an alarm line? Let's find a stock that I'll be interested in using it on. So C4, right, this looks like a stage 4 downtrend. I would never ever buy this unless it was a news based trade. Cakebox, so we can see it's one of the very few IPOs that has done well in recent years. I mean, that could be a strategy right there. I'd have to quantify it. Short every single IPO that comes to market. Maybe it's with a 10 to 15% stop. I'll need to look that one up. But Cakebox Holdings seems to have done well. It's very illiquid, so we can see there's probably a lot of stop loss liquidity here underneath the 200, which has been triggered. It's sent the stock down. There's the puke bounce trade there. And if we would want to draw an alarm line, let's go back, we click draw, and it's the one with the bell. So again, we'd want to be notified before it broke out. So we draw the line perhaps here, so we'll get it to 184 pence. Remember, this is SetsQX, so the spread will be a couple of pence, and then what reaches around this level, we'd already have it on our radars. So this is the volume filter that I would use, and you know, we could go through all 110, but just to give you an idea, this is how I would use that filter. There's a couple of others I use. In a downtrending market, I would use 52-week low. So this is the days since the 52-week low. We would put in 1, so we get today and yesterday. And this one, when the price is not equal to the close 10 trading days ago, this gets rid a lot of stocks that might be at a 52-week low, but they haven't moved in 10, 15, some of them haven't even moved in 3 months. So this one here gets rid of that. This filter is already on SharePad, but if you want to make some adjustments, just give them a call and they will sort you out. Again, got rid of closed-end investments. So let's see what we've got in this one. We've got Allied Mines. This is one where they're trying to get rid of management, but it doesn't really appear to be working because the stock's right down. That to me looks like a zone there. Okay, that didn't work out, so I'll delete that. Try again. So if we would see the stock fall through this level, that might be a good risk to reward trade right there. I don't tend to short in rising markets because it's a lot easier to go long, but when everyone's bearish, things can fall quite quickly, so it is worth having a couple of shorts in mind so that you can jump on them when the market turns. AA4, that looks terrible. But there's not really any volatility in there. Let's try and see if we can find some larger stocks. BT Group, that looks like a stage 4 downtrending chart. So we can see I've already drawn a trend line on BT here. It did break out of it, and it's ended up falling right back through it. I would not want to be long BT. I don't know the fundamentals of the stock, but when you look at this chart, it's going down, and I just don't really want to hold losing stocks. I'll happily short them, but my view is that if you go long on this, do you have an edge against literally everyone else who's covering this stock, or are you punting the bottom? You know, it's not really the most profitable strategy, I don't think. Character Group, this one, it's already fallen through support, so I wouldn't like to short it now. In my mind, the best time to short is when it's falling through. So yesterday would have been a great entry, and you could put your stop somewhere around here. So if there is a big rally, you get taken out. But if you did short the stock yesterday, you sort of nicely in profit. Let's see if we can find. Has anyone got any stocks that they know that are going down that we'd like to have a look at? So Royal Mail Group, that one, it's clearly fallen through support, but it did so on earnings. Countrywise, thanks Terry. Let's have a look at that after Royal Mail. When you know that there's a trading update around a key area, I personally don't like to take a position because that's earnings risk. So if we'd shorted Royal Mail as it broke through this, so if we look where the trend lines come from, so we can see the stock there is this really is the trend line. Sometimes it goes through and comes back up. That's stop loss liquidity getting triggered. So rather than, if we think of this as a support zone rather than a true line, this helps a bit. But when you take a position before results, that could easily have been better than expected. It could have gapped up to 205 and we're short at 190. We're instantly in the hole, and that is just slippage that we don't really need. So I will never take a position if I know there's trading results before it, because in my mind it's just risk that I don't really need. Let's have a look at Countrywide. So we'd have to go back to, we'd have to get rid of the filter. CWD. We can see there, gap down, gap down. There was an emergency placing somewhere, I can't remember what level, but if we look from August 18, it's putting a low around this area here, and we could see there's been a lot of volume as well going through the stock. So it's clear that as the stock has approached 200 and been around that area there, that there's plenty of buyers willing to take the stock off the seller's hands, because we can see it in the ime and we can see the price responding. So with Countrywide, I would regard that level as being quite significant. It's doubled from that level. We can see that it got very near the 200 EMA. It's pulled back right now. If I wanted to trade Countrywide, I'd want to have it in an uptrend, and I'd probably want to see it break this level, the 400, and I'd also want to see it break the 200 as well. That's an important trend line. So if we go back to LSE shares, we can look at, so we looked at the 52-week lows. 52-week high is my preferred one. Again, this is on the SharePad library, and this is the filter that I use to find uptrend in stocks. So if we think of, there are some great stocks on the stock market, and if they're that good, then they're going to go up, and at least this filter will put them on my radar. I might not buy them, but at least I'll have that opportunity to notice them and to see if I can get on board. So if we look, we've got Adams here, 6.2. If I put in a filter there, sorry, not this one, a market cap filter, so I've got 500k there, which really is a bit too small. If we apply 20 million, that immediately gets rid of quite a few, and we've got 10 days here. So if we focus on the last 3 days, so it narrows it down to 96. So you could run this once a week and put in 5 days here, and you could go through it every Saturday or Sunday. You get notified what shares had been doing what and how many days ago. So if we look at Arcontech here, now I'm long this stock already. There's the alert line. It came back to test the support. Now I would like to add to this position at some point, because we can see there that is a really nice stage 2 uptrend. It's not the most liquid of stocks, so I wouldn't recommend to take a huge position. In fact, I wouldn't recommend to buy any stock, because none of the stocks that I mentioned are recommendations to buy. You've got to do your own research rather than buy anything talked about here. Colin McGregor, can you look at Micro Focus? Colin, let's run through a couple of stocks on this filter, then we'll look at Micro Focus. Is it on this filter already? It's not, so it hasn't made a new high recently. So we can see there Audio Boom has popped up again because it's made a new 52-week high, and it's got the volume. So this would be one I'd be interested in. If I haven't added it to the watch list, I will add it now. Belvoir, there was good news recently on this day. I remember it because I read the RNS and then promptly forgot to buy it, which is a bit of a shame. Ceres Power, that one has been in the news recently. We can see that there's a lack of volatility around, when was this, Q3 last year, and then suddenly the price has broken out. We can see the volume started increasing. So this would be a stock that I would want on the watch list, because I'd be interested to see it pull back, and then I'd want to see where that resistance is. At the moment it looks like sort of 500, 520 would be a level, but I'd want to see the stock consolidate, because when it's ran up from 200 to 500, that's a lot of people in profit, and that's a lot of people who are going to want to bank if the stock does start to dip. So we would want to see, or at least I would want to see, some period of consolidation, let the sellers bank profits. I'd want to see strength in the stock as people come in and take the stock off those hands, and then I'd want to see it break out to a new high with me in the stock. So let's look at Micro Focus. Any questions on this filter before we change? Does everyone understand the idea of finding uptrend in stocks? So if we type in Avon, we've got Avon Rubber. I think Phil Oakley covered this for IC recently. Nice uptrend. Sets traded as well, I believe, so you can put it on the market. You can put your order on the market with direct market access. Mr. Analytical, do I use the PE? Not on this filter. Oh, I do use the PE, sorry, on this filter. I mainly have the PE just to see what the market sentiment is. So obviously PE tells us the price to earnings ratio, it tells us what the market values the stock at. It doesn't really tell us the earnings in relation to the growth, so you'd need PEG for that. But with PE, I'm basically looking to see what people think of it. See, Ceres Power obviously doesn't make any profits, so there's no PE there. So straight away I know that this is a sort of punt stock. It's something to trade rather than probably invest in. Although now I've said that, in 10 years' time it'll probably be the next FTSE 100 company. So if we, Colin, let's go back to micro focus. So we'd have to put it on all instruments. Micro focus. So we can see there's a gap down there. I assume there was a big profit warning or something bad's happened. It's happened again recently. A lot of volume, that's never good, because when you see big volume on a down day, it's likely institutions are probably selling. I believe micro focus is sets traded as well. I mean, if I wanted to trade this, I would probably trade it short, because for it to get to where it was, there's going to be a lot of sellers all the way up, trap buyers, people who bought at 11.50. They're now looking, they're 25% down. If they've got a large position, they'll want to get out. At least when you buy with a breakout on a breakout filter, especially if it's an all-time high as well, you've got the entire shareholder base in profit. Nobody's forced to sell. Nobody's in a rush to sell. And you've got that magic as well, which is what happened with Fever Tree. If we go back, so we got the stage 2 here, the uptrend. Everyone's very excited. It's a good story. Whether or not you can tell the difference between the product is a different thing, but it's a nice brand and you can see why people liked it. Right now it seems to be in a downtrend. When you've got a high of 41 pence, some people will have been buying large stakes around 32, 40 quid. And if they're still holding now at 15, they're down quite substantially. They're just going to be sellers all the way up. So for it to get back to its high, it's going to take a long time. This was something that we saw with Boohoo as well. So there we can see the stage 2, the trades, the nice trend. They had a big profit warning here in 2017. Heavy volume. Volumes continued staying heavy over the next few days as institutions sold out. But it took around 2 years. It even went a lot lower just for the stock to break out. So if we draw, so we've got a line there, so we can see the high, the profit warning, that was on end of September 2017, and it made a new high 2019. So 2 years later, 2 years is a long time. So I just can't see, if you're a trader, there's absolutely no point in holding Boohoo when there's a profit warning. If you're an investor and you know the company better, then fair enough, that's your decision. But as a trader, I would only ever short a profit warning. I would only ever go long on an intraday trend. But we can see here the stock closed at the bottom of the low of the day, which is never good. Does LSE shares list include both AIM and main market? Yes, it does, Mr. Analytical. So it covers all of the shares on the market, which is why I use it. Candlestick time, 1 day or 1 hour. So these are all daily. So if we look there at the top, it's pence daily candlesticks. If we want to get intraday candles, which is what I use ShareScope for, you can click intraday and it will give us when we zoom in, 1 minute candles. You would need live data for this to actually be of any benefit. But yeah, on the daily I use 1 minute candles and I use daily candles. I don't bother with weekly or anything like that. So we've gone through the filters. So we click back to LSE shares, 52-week high. So we've gone through the volume filter, the low filter, and if we go to my watch list, so stocks in play will typically be news-based shares or something I want to keep a close eye on. I will keep them in here and I'll delete them as appropriate. There might only ever be 3 or 4 in, but rather than, if I come up with an idea, rather than trust in my brain to remember, I will just put it in the stocks in play, because then I won't forget. Because there's nothing worse than thinking of an idea of a trade, seeing it happen, only you completely forgot about it. So that's what I use this portfolio for. If we scroll to the watch list, so this, I used to have a watch list of about 200 to 300 shares, and the problem with that was it was just so hard to keep track of them all. So what I've done is I now keep it below 100. It's a lot more manageable, and rather than trying to catch every single trade, it's much easier to catch fewer higher quality trades. So 4D Pharma, we put that in earlier on. We'd need to check the news to see if there's a trade there. If there's not, then I would delete it and get rid of it, because I only want stocks in the watch list that are relevant at the moment or in the near future. AB Dynamics, so we can see nice stage 2 uptrend there. We've now got the moving averages start to point down. The problem with this stock is to short it, the spread is quite wide. So far I've just watched it and I haven't actually taken a position. And we're on intraday at the moment. If we click buy and hold there, that would take us back onto the daily candlesticks. But this, when there is volatility in it, it can really move. So when I was originally looking at this stock as a stage 3, and then they came out with a really good update. I think it was on this day, and the stock rallied 40% in a couple of weeks. So you can make money on stocks that don't move very much if there's a catalyst for them to move, and that's the key. They really need something to kick people into buying it. Otherwise, something like this, very difficult to trade unless you were running a swing trade on it. Arima, now this is 3.3 million market cap, so it's really only something that you could trade on a swing. But if we look over the past few years, the stock's made a nice, almost like a bowl shape, and where I would be interested is taking a small position around 43 pence if it ever gets there. Can I briefly explain the stages? I can, yep. So we have typically 4 stages. This is in an article on SharePad already. But we generally have stage 1, which is the flat line. So we can see the flat line here. Stage 2 would usually be a stage 2 uptrend. Stage 3 is where we've got the peak and the sort of rounded top here, typically characterized by high volume as well, as people are starting to sell out, institutions start to sell their positions. And then we've got the stage 4, which you should avoid being long of stage 4 stocks, because it's just damn hard to make any money on them. So Rima, this is one that I would be interested in, around 43 pence, but it really is so small you can't really take a huge position in it. Altitude, so I would say this is probably stage 1, but if it breaks this level here, 43 pence, the low, it could easily fall a lot more and continue a stage 4. So you never really know which stage it's in until it actually moves and tells us. So we can see the 50 EMA here has been resistance. If the stock could break this and maybe move out of the recent high, then it might start to get interesting, but at the moment there's very little volume in the stock. Unless you're an investor and you want to accumulate a large position. As a trader, this is a dead stock. It's going nowhere. Dead stock equals dead money. So I wouldn't be interested in this for that reason. ENX, another rare IPO. And a good thing to note is that it's always moved on good volume. So that's what we want to see. We want to see buyers coming in. So another level there, if we use the alert line, let's say if we put it at 190, because remember the spread will be a few pence, we would want to be in that stock around 197. A good strategy that you can use is to have level 2 open, and when you see the market makers start to move up, if you've got access to a phone broker, you can then call your broker up, ask them to deal directly through the market maker, because if there's no stock available on the RSP, you can still get it through the market maker, because they are obliged to deal when dealt with over a phone, and they'll offer whatever prices they want online because they know they're not obliged to do it, which in my mind is insanity. And I've quizzed the LSE about this. I actually asked them in the handbook. I had a dispute, but they told me that it wasn't any of their business. So I guess I'll never have an answer for that one. But if you use a phone broker, you can get much better prices. It does cost more. It's not £5 a trade, but it can be helpful if you want to get in or out very quickly. So Anglo Eastern Plantations, this was one of Simon Thompson's tips recently. So we can see there's the reason, there's the day of the tip, there's the move. It's come back a bit now, but one thing that we know about this stock is when it's in bargain shares, Simon will repeatedly tip this, and you can make money on his tips. If the stock's near a support line, I'd be interested in buying that, because if he tips it, the stock will move. And when you're a trader, it doesn't really matter why stocks move. It's about understanding why they move and then taking advantage of it. As we've got Arcontech again, Argentex Group, investment banking. I mean that sounds quite techy to me, but that's a nice stage 2 uptrend. It's sets traded. So what we can do is if we have level 2 access, we can sort of wait until the stock's trending around this level, and then we can take out the ask and get long. Alternatively, if it breaks down through the 200, so we can see it's been support there, I would class that as a support line. If we did want to trade it short, we could hit the bid and go short. Set is pretty good platform to trade, I think. Aston Martin Lagonda, this has been on my watch list. Very often you can't get borrow on this stock, which is frustrating. You can only ever get borrow when it's rallied, and that's not really when you want to be buying it. Not really when you'd want to be shorting it, sorry. So I've already drawn a trend line here. I would want to sell around £4, 400 pence. This stock, I think it's fair to say, is complete garbage. If we look at the IPO at 1800. These are the smart guys. This is the smart money taking this IPO. Retail was involved, I think, a little, but this just looks like a classic private equity pump and then dump. They've dressed it up nicely to sell, and that's the danger of holding a stock. It can fall. Probably people were looking here at 11 thinking, oh, it's 40% down, probably not going to fall much further, but then it's another 50% down. So as a trader, you want to manage downside risk, because if you can manage that and you can make money, you can actually do pretty well just by keeping the losses low. and trying to run winners as hard as you can. So we've got a question: how would I use the partial trend icon? That's a good question, Catering Ideas, because I don't know what the partial trend icon is, I'm afraid. So I'll have to get back to you on that one, I'm afraid. So if we go through a few more, I always keep an eye on Brent, because oil stocks will be correlated to oil. So if there's any big moves in oil and you've got oil stocks, it's worth keeping an eye on them. As we can see, it's come right off. But the stocks that are highly geared towards oil will do a lot better than oil itself. So I never actually trade oil, but I will trade oil stocks. I keep an eye on Bitcoin as well, mainly just to see, out of interest, I suppose. Also Argo blockchain, very correlated to the price of Bitcoin. I'm not entirely too sure what's going on with this stock, because I've lost count of all the machines and everything. And also director's just left, which means he no longer has to notify when he sells. So if I was in, I would just be selling and cashing in. But yeah, you never know, you'd have to look at the sort of continued price action. If I wanted to trade Argo blockchain, I'll probably rather buy it at 11 and ride it up, rather than buy it now and hope that it goes up. I also wouldn't want to trade it short either, because it's only a 20 million market cap. It'll be a lot lower when it's gone down, and if someone comes in with a bid for it or something like that, and you haven't got a guaranteed stop, then you can be in the hole. I can't remember what it was. Was it last year or the year before? There was a 200% premium bid, and you don't want to be short things like that. So it's much better to short something like Aston Martin at $1 billion, because it's unlikely that someone is going to pay $1 billion premium and pay $2 billion, and the stock goes from 4.5 to 9. I mean, it is possible, but you are protected by shorting things with much larger valuations. I'm aware that we've got 2 minutes left. I think I've covered most things, so I will go through the watch list. I will keep an eye on the FTSE 100. I never trade it. FTSE 250, so we can see over the past few weeks the sentiment has been pretty good. I think that's the Boris bounce there. I mean, that would have been a really good trade to go along the index. I just didn't think of it. But if you did, well done, because that really was an excellent trade. I keep a look on the FTSE All Share, the AIM All Share. This sort of tells us what the AIM market's doing. So we can see around October 2018, when it started to get really bad, it tanked. It's doing okay at the moment. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens next. I'm quite bullish on 2020, but I reserve the right to change my mind and start shorting things at any time. Is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else on the watch list, so if anyone's got any questions, yeah, please let me know. Future. Yeah, Colin, let's load up Future. This is a great example of a stage 2 stock. It's done very well for me. I was in around 250 and I traded it quite heavily as well, and it's risen quite a bit over the last few years. At the moment, I think it's shadow fall as shorting Future. So we can see the stock hasn't traded below the 200 since, is that 2016? So clearly that level, the 200 EMA, is a significant zone, and as much as I like Future, I would prefer to make money on it more. So if I think that this stock is going to go down around 11, then I would look to short it. I mean, the dangers of this stock is that it's still putting out RNSs that are materially ahead of expectations. I mean, these aren't really the stocks that we should be shorting. Short trash, because when it's trash, it falls a lot faster. And maybe future is trash, who knows. The directors did cash out quite a bit recently, and when all of a sudden directors take several million out, is that a sign of the top? Academia says no, but yeah, I just think they're a lot less motivated to deliver on the business when you're all of a sudden a few million richer. But that's just maybe me being cynical. Again, who knows? But I would not want to go long future unless it would break 1570. But even then, I think the easy money on this stock has been made. The time to buy was on the way up when it was still, a couple of hundred market cap, not when it's 1.2 billion. I think the trade on future might be short. I'm sorry if you're holding future. That's just how I see it. I don't have any emotion to this stock. Yeah, I personally think the play on future is short. Am I using standard filters? Yeah, my filters, Green Gap Go, are available on SharePad, so they have been uploaded onto the library. I'll double check after this. If I've made any changes to them, I'll get them put on, and they'll be with the date of this webinar, so that will be the one to download. So I'll get that done and look out for it in the next week or so. Thank you very much, Noax. That's very kind. Ted, yeah, Mr. Hugger, the guy who likes to give hugs, allegedly. So we can see Ted. It looks like a stage 4 to me. Gap down here. What is interesting to note is that volume really has started stepping up. So the average volume has been ramping up. So clearly someone's interested in buying this stock. If we look in December, so the stock gapped down. I think it was a profit warning, but it was immediately bought back up. You don't know if that's shorts closing the position or if that's genuine buyers. I mean, shorters do create some sort of fake liquidity, because not only have you got people actively buying for themselves, you got people closing a position and buying. So you got sort of two sets of buyers, and that's how we get these squeezes. I mean, shorting profit warnings does work if I think it's unexpected, because that's when expectations don't match reality. That's when prices get volatile. If we look at Ted Baker, probably everyone was already expecting this profit warning because it's been fallen. Everyone knows the retail woes on the high street. So I would not really wanted to short that. The time to short would have been much higher. It's classed as 2.5p, probably a value trap. I would not want to trade this stock long or short unless there was a short squeeze or unless it was a news-based trade. But based on this chart, I would just leave it alone. Has anyone got any more that they'd like to cover? Yeah, so Alex wants to look at Billington. Let's search Billington Holdings. So you could have done fantastically well if you were buying in 2013. Yeah, and look, we can see the uptrend there. So if you can find a stock that has good fundamentals and it's got the right technical setup, you can really run these hard, and you only need sort of one or two of these a year to really make a difference to P&L, because it's the big winners that do give P&L a boost. I mean, small wins are good, definitely better than losing, but it's the big winners that you get from driving stocks that are the way to drive your portfolio. So if you look at Billington Holdings, it's going up nicely. I wouldn't want to buy right now, because for me, I want to be buying when the area of least resistance. So the line that I've just marked on the chart here would have been a good buy. Takes out the recent high, surged from 365 to 445 without really any pullback as well. So that would have been a great trade. But right now, if I'm buying now, I'm probably buying the stock that someone who was buying here is now selling. So I don't want to be liquidity for anyone else. I want to be buying the best trades, and I don't chase. Quick look at how long would I hold for. Well, generally it really depends. So I think it was a couple of days ago I bought Water Intelligence on a good RNS, and I sold it because I didn't like the price action. But if that stock had gone up very quickly, I would have been tempted to run some profits, because if something goes up really quickly, there's always a steep pullback. But if it's gently going up, then I'm quite happy to hold it. It's really discretionary. I suppose I should develop an automation and a trailing stop, but I don't really like using stops because I'm convinced the brokers pass it to the market makers and they know exactly where to shake the tree. Even if they don't know, then they can do whatever they want. So for example, if we look at Bidstack, let's look at Bidstack. This is a popular, or was a popular retail stock. The market makers will know where the stops usually are, and they can just go hunting for them wherever they want. So I'm trying to find an example. So Bidstack has really sort of just gone vertical until this stage 4 downfall. I do use stop loss. I use a mental stop loss. Bidstack, it's the magic has gone. So I looked at it on the RNS the other day. I thought there might be a puke trade. It just couldn't really rally. This was a puke trade here. I thought we might have something similar as people average down, but yeah, it's not really for me. The time to buy was when it was going up. In this trend, you could have bought a breakout trade here. I think I bought around 9p around here. Sold out far too early, but the goal of trading is basically to catch winners and get on board. Darvas boxes, I don't use Darvas boxes, but I know the concept, and it's a very good book. If you haven't read it, How I Made 2 Million in the Stock Market. So he's a Hungarian dancer who actually found that just by using charts and being away from all the noise, all the brokerages, that you could actually make a lot more money just by trading move to move, support to resistance, and sometimes that is you don't have to complicate things. My system isn't really very complex. It's something that I think anyone can do if you do the work and you find these trades. They don't magically appear overnight. You've got to go through the filters, you've got to find them, look at volume, look at highs, get them on the watch list, keep them on the radar. But I do believe you can find them just by trading support and resistance. Don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but you can double click on the chart to show history. And that's thank you very much, Noax. I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. Thank you. Has anyone got any other stocks to cover? So Tatton Asset Management. So that's investment banking. So if we scroll, this looks like a nice uptrend. It is sets traded. So what we could do is when the stock gets to here, and we want to get a better entry, we could put our stock on the bid at around 290, and then add to it if it breaks out. And if it doesn't break out, we can get out really quickly because it's set. There's always orders on there to get out. So yeah, this stock 28 times earnings, so it's not cheap. But if you wanted to trade this, personally, I wouldn't, because it doesn't really look like it's going to move that much, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it would be the line here. And I would probably put my stop maybe around here, give the stock a bit of breathing space, because we don't want to be sort of whipsawed. People know where the stops usually are. As noticed, very volatile, gaps up and down quite a lot as well. Glencore's like that as well. I'm not really sure why, because it's FTSE 100, but that gaps around all over the place. Any specific questions on Tatton? You can see there, it sort of put in almost like a triple bottom, where the volume was good each time. So if we look there, check the volume. Yeah, so I think we've got time for one more, if anyone has any questions. Right, one more, Reach. I do hold a long position in this stock. I'm close to, I think, 100% up now. So where did I buy? I was buying. What I noticed is that if we look, there's a nice volume started picking up. The stock started to move up. So when a stock's well off the bottom, I take that to mean that selling has sort of dried up. Volume started to increase, the stock started to move. I got in around this level. I was very nearly stopped out at one point here. So my stop was actually around here, and then the stock would have whipsawed and carried on without me. So I'm quite pleased that it didn't get stopped out there. But I mean, that is going to happen in this business. You are going to get stopped out, you are going to print the low, and then the stock is going to go up without you. That is going to happen, get used to it. But I mean, the other alternative is to not have a stop and watch the stock keep going down, which isn't really an option. Yes, I would say Reach is a stage 2 based on the price action. I don't particularly know the fundamentals of it. I know what it does. There's that phone hacking scandal with it as well. But this isn't, there's not really a lot priced in at a PE of 4. It's a 500 million market cap, so for it to double, to go up to $1 billion, is that possible? Well, maybe, we'll see. But I wouldn't really want to be in this stock if it traded below the 200 moving average, and I would probably get out much sooner as well, because I'm sitting on a nice profit now and I just don't really want to give that up. So yeah, this isn't a recommendation to buy Reach. I do hold along in it, but I'm certainly not saying that other people should as well. I don't do anything with options, RA, that's too complex for me. I stick to equities and what I know, or what I think I know at least. So yeah, I don't do anything complex like that. Will I be doing a ShareScope webinar? Yeah, I think that is possibly something we can look at doing in the future. Yeah, if you want to contact me, my website is shiftingshares.com with the email of the same name. Thank you very much for coming. Your time is appreciated, and yeah, hopefully we can be in touch soon. Thank you.